Dr. Kale brushed the thick dust away from the strange metal wall. His green scales caught the light from his headlamp as he worked. The Saurian scientist had been digging on this dead world for 3 months now, but he had never found anything like this. "Professor, come quick," his assistant called out. The small crystalline being's body made soft musical sounds when she was excited. "You must see what we found down here." Kale climbed down the narrow tunnel his team had dug. The deeper they went, the more amazing things became. The walls were made of metal that looked brand new, even though their tests said it was incredibly old. The corridors curved in ways that made no sense. Some rooms seemed bigger on the inside than they should be. "How is this possible?" Kale whispered to himself. He ran his clawed fingers along the smooth walls. There were no tool marks anywhere, no scratches or dents. The metal joints were so perfect that he couldn't see where one piece ended and another began. The walls were covered with symbols that looked like nothing he had ever seen before. Kale had studied the languages of 47 different alien species, but these marks were completely unknown. His computer couldn't even figure out if they were letters, numbers, or pictures. His team of 6 aliens worked carefully through the ruins. There were Hydronians with their blue skin that always looked wet. 2 tall avians with bright feathers walked on bird-like legs. An arachnoid team member skittered along the walls on 8 legs, taking pictures with multiple cameras. "Sir, the dating results are back," announced Dr. Desis, the Hydronian team member. Her voice bubbled through the water mask she wore to breathe. "You're not going to believe this?" Kale looked at the datapad. The numbers made him step backward in shock. 50,000 years old. The ruins were older than any known civilization in the galaxy. Every history book said that the oldest space-traveling species had only left their home worlds 12,000 years ago. "That can't be right," Kale said. "Run the test again." They tested different parts of the ruins. Every result was the same. Someone had built this place when the galaxy was young, long before any of their people had even discovered fire. The team worked deeper into the complex. The rooms got larger and more strange. Some had ceilings so high that their lights couldn't reach the top. Others had floors that seemed to glow with their own soft light. Then they found the central chamber. It was huge, bigger than the council meeting hall back on Concordia. In the center stood a circle of tall crystal pillars. Each crystal was perfectly clear and as tall as 3 saurians, standing on each other's shoulders. "Nobody touch anything," Kale ordered. "We don't know what these do." But as soon as he spoke, one of the crystals began to glow with soft blue light, then another, then all of them together. The team stepped back as the light got brighter. Suddenly, the air above the crystals filled with moving pictures made of light. It was a map of stars, but not like any star map they knew. Golden dots of light showed thousands of star systems. Bright lines connected them like roads between cities. "It's beautiful," whispered the avian team member, her feathers rustling with amazement. Kale pulled out his portable star chart and compared it to the floating map. His blood turned cold as he realized what he was seeing. Every golden dot on the ancient map matched a real star system. But according to their current records, most of these systems were empty. Others were listed as uninhabited in the council databases. "This was an empire," Kale said slowly. "A huge empire that spread across thousands of worlds." The map showed trade routes, communication lines, and what looked like major cities on hundreds of planets. It was bigger than the current Galactic Council territory. Much bigger. "But where are they?" asked Dr. Thesis. "Where did they go?" The crystal map kept changing, showing different views of the ancient empire. There were pictures of great cities, with towers that reached into space. Ships that looked nothing like current designs flew between the stars. And everywhere, there were images of the beings who had built all this. They looked almost familiar, but strange at the same time. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. They stood upright, like many species did, but their faces were different from any known alien race. They had small noses, strange mouth shapes, and hair that grew on top of their heads in many different colors. Who were they? Kale wondered out loud, as if answering his question. Symbols appeared in the air next to the map. The computer worked for several minutes, trying to understand the alien writing. Finally, it made a soft beeping sound. Translation complete, the machine announced in its flat voice. Species designation, human, empire duration, approximately 8,000 standard years. Status, unknown. The word human meant nothing to any of them. These people were not in any database or history book. An entire galactic civilization had existed for thousands of years and then vanished completely, leaving only empty ruins and forgotten star maps. As the team stared at the floating images, one terrible question filled everyone's mind. What could make such a powerful empire disappear so completely that no one even remembered their name? 3 weeks later, Dr. Kale stood in the biggest room he had ever seen. The Galactic Council chamber was enormous, with seats for representatives from 47 different alien species. The dome-shaped ceiling showed real stars from outside. The space station and the air hummed with nervous energy. Kale had never spoken to so many important people before. His hands shook slightly as he held his datapad. The discovery he was about to share would change everything they knew about their history. Fellow beings of the Council, Kale began, his voice echoing through the chamber. The ruins we found contain information that will shock you all. The large viewing screens around the room lit up with images from the crystal data cores. Pictures of the ancient beings appeared everywhere. Tall, strange creatures with smooth skin and hair on their heads. They wore uniforms and lived in cities that sparkled with advanced technology. These people called themselves humans, Kale announced. They ruled an empire bigger than our current council territory. Their technology was far beyond anything we have today. Ambassador, Lysis of the water-breathing Hydronians, raised her webbed hand. Blue water dripped from her speaking mask as she talked. How advanced could they have been? We have faster-than-light travel, planetary shields, and energy weapons. Kale touched his control pad. New images filled the screens. Human ships moved between star systems in just a few days. Their cities floated in space without any visible support. They had weapons that could crack open planets and tools that built entire worlds from nothing but rock and gas. Their ships made our fastest vessels look like they were standing still, Kale explained. They could change a dead world into a garden planet in just 20 years. We need 200 years to do the same thing. The bird-like avians in the chamber ruffled their bright feathers with worry. General Klax, their military leader, stood up on his thin legs. If they were so powerful, where are they now? What destroyed them? That's not the most shocking part, Kale said quietly. The crystal cores contained detailed files about every major species in this room. The chamber became very quiet. Even the insect-like arachnoids stopped their constant chittering. Dr. Kale activated the genetic analysis files. Complex charts and diagrams appeared on every screen. Every species represented here shows signs of guided evolution, Kale continued. Your ancestors didn't develop intelligence naturally. Someone helped them. Someone changed their genetic structure to make them smarter, stronger, and more able to build technology. The silicon-based architects, who looked like living crystals, flashed angry red lights. Impossible, their spokesperson declared in a voice like grinding stone. Our evolution is well documented. We developed from simple mineral formations over millions of years. According to these records, that's exactly what the humans wanted you to think, Kale replied. He showed them genetic comparison charts. Look at these DNA markers. Every species here has the same unusual changes in the parts of their genes that control brain development. The aquatic Hydronians started making bubbling sounds of distress. The proud avian delegation screeched their protests. The 8-legged arachnoids clicked their claws against their seats in anger. "You're saying we're all artificial?" demanded Commander Vex of the warrior scorpion people. "That we're some kind of experiment." "Not artificial," Kale corrected. "Enhanced. The humans took your natural ancestors and helped them develop faster and better than they would have alone. They guided your evolution for thousands of generations." More evidence appeared on the screens. Ancient human facilities on dozens of worlds, genetic laboratories, educational centers where primitive aliens learned to use tools and language, records of careful breeding programs that made each species smarter with every generation. "They were like parents," Kale explained. "They helped your ancestors grow from simple animals into the intelligent beings you are today. Then they made sure you forgot they ever existed." The chamber erupted in chaos. Some delegates shouted in anger. Others demanded more proof. A few sat in stunned silence, trying to understand what they had just learned. "Why would they hide this from us?" asked Dr. Zara, a peaceful, plant-based being whose leaves rustled with confusion. "If they helped us, why not tell us?" Kale activated the final set of files. The screens showed the last human records they had found. The images were darker now, showing tired-looking humans in military uniforms. Their cities looked damaged, and their faces seemed sad and worried. "Because something terrible was coming," Kale said. "The final records mention a war, a threat so dangerous that the humans decided to disappear rather than face it with their children nearby." The last human messages played in the chamber. Even though the words were 50,000 years old, the fear in the voices was clear. They spoke of enemies from dark space, of a war that had lasted for centuries, of weapons so terrible that using them might destroy what they were trying to protect. "We are leaving. One final message," said. "Our children will be safer if they grow strong without us. If the enemy returns, perhaps they will be ready to stand where we failed." The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. Somewhere, out in the darkness between galaxies, the threat that had driven the humans away might still be waiting, and the children they had created and protected would have to face it alone. 6 months later, the largest group of spaceships in galactic history flew through space toward unknown worlds. 12 different fleets spread out across the galaxy, each one following the ancient star maps the humans had left behind. Dr. Kale sat on the bridge of the biggest council ship, watching stars stream past the windows. The ship was called Harmony of Worlds, and it carried scientists, soldiers, and diplomats from every major species. Everyone wanted to find the mysterious humans and learn what had really happened 50,000 years ago. "Next system coming up," announced Captain Vorthok, a tall saurian with dark green scales. "Long-range sensors show 3 planets that might have ruins." Kale looked at his ancient star map. According to the human records, this system had once held a major military base and training center. If they were lucky, they might find more than just empty buildings. The first 2 planets showed nothing but wind-blown ruins and broken metal. But the 3rd planet made everyone stop and stare. Huge structures still stood on the surface, their lights blinking in regular patterns after 50,000 years. "Those buildings are still working," whispered Dr. Thesis in amazement. "The power systems are still running." They landed near the largest complex. The buildings were enormous, with walls made of the same impossible metal they had found in the first ruins. But here, everything still worked. Doors opened for them automatically. Lights came on when they walked into rooms. Even the air was fresh and clean. "Welcome to Training Center Kepler 7, said a pleasant voice, in perfect galactic standard. "Please state your security clearance level." The team looked at each other in shock. The computer system was still active after all these years. Kale stepped forward nervously. "We are researchers from the Galactic Council," he said. "We're trying to learn about the humans who built this place." "Accessing historical records," the voice replied. "Warning. Current date shows significant temporal displacement. Please stand by for emergency protocols. The walls around them lit up with moving pictures. Suddenly, they were surrounded by images of humans in military uniforms. Men and women with different skin colors and facial features walked through the same halls where the alien team now stood. "This is Commander Hero, Kim, reporting for duty," said one young human man. His uniform was neat and clean, and he looked confident and strong. But there was something worried in his eyes. More recordings played automatically. They saw human soldiers training with weapons that bent space around them. Scientists working on projects that the current council couldn't even understand. Families saying goodbye as ships left for distant battles. "Day 43 of the Devourer War," said a female human officer named Captain Lee Sunmi. Her uniform was torn and dirty, and she looked very tired. "We lost the entire Vegas sector last week. The enemy isn't just destroying our worlds. They're making them disappear completely, like they never existed at all." Dr. Kale felt his blood turn cold. "Computer, what are devourers?" "Accessing military files," the voice responded. "Warning, this information is classified at the highest security levels." The walls filled with terrifying images. Huge black ships that hurt to look at directly moved through space. But these weren't normal ships. They seemed to exist in several dimensions at once, and wherever they went, entire star systems simply stopped existing. "The Devourers come from the empty space between galaxies," explained another recording. This human looked older and more serious. "They don't live in our reality the same way we do. They eat the basic structure that holds the universe together. When they attack a star system, it doesn't just die, it gets erased from existence entirely." More recordings showed the terrible war that had lasted for over 300 years. The humans had fought with weapons that could destroy planets and tactics that required millions of soldiers to die just to slow the enemy down. "We're winning," said Commander Park Jinwoo in one late recording. "But we're becoming monsters to do it. Our weapons are so terrible that using them changes us into something dark and cruel. If we keep fighting this way, even if we win, our children will inherit a galaxy ruled by killers instead of protectors." The final recordings were the most important. They showed a huge meeting of human leaders making a desperate decision. "Operation Silent Guardian is approved," announced an elderly human woman. "All military forces will withdraw to the galaxy's edge. We'll enter deep sleep and wait for our children to grow strong enough to stand with us as equals. The automated systems will guide them," added another leader. "But they must develop on their own. They can't live in our shadow forever." "What if the Devourers come back while we sleep?" asked a young officer. "Then our children will face them," came the sad reply, "and hopefully, they'll be stronger and wiser than we were." The recordings ended, leaving the alien team standing in shocked silence. Dr. Kale realized the terrible truth. The humans hadn't been destroyed or defeated. They had chosen to disappear because they were afraid of what they had become during the long war. But the most frightening part was still to come. Deep in the facility's central computer, alarms suddenly began flashing red warnings across every screen. Long-range sensors detecting anomalous readings in dark space. The computer announced calmly, "Pattern consistent with historical devourer. Signatures. Estimated time to galactic perimeter, 18 standard months." The enemy that had driven the humans into hiding was finally coming back. The hidden star system was unlike anything the Council fleet had ever seen. A massive structure surrounded a small red star, so big that it made their largest space stations look like tiny toys. The thing was perfectly round and covered in geometric patterns that made their eyes hurt when they looked directly at it. "What is that thing?" whispered Captain Vorthok from the Bridge of Harmony of Worlds. His green scales had turned pale with amazement. Dr. Kale checked his instruments 3 times before he believed what they were telling him. "It's artificial. Someone built a shell around an entire star. The energy readings are incredible." The joint fleet of 12 different alien species approached carefully. Their sensors showed technology so advanced that their computers couldn't even understand how it worked. The structure was bigger than most planets, but it showed no signs of age, despite running for 50,000 years. "There are openings," reported the navigation officer, a bird-like avian, whose feathers were bright with excitement, "large enough for our ships to enter." They flew inside through an opening that closed gently behind them. Inside was even more amazing than outside. Vast chambers stretched in every direction, so huge that they seemed to go on forever, and floating. In perfect formation throughout these chambers were millions upon millions of glass containers. "Stasis pods," Dr. Kale breathed. "They're all stasis pods." Each pod was the size of a small room and filled with glowing blue liquid. Inside each one floated a human in perfect suspended sleep. Men and women of different ages, all wearing simple white clothes, all waiting patiently for someone to wake them up. "How many are there?" asked Dr. Thesis, her blue skin shimmering with wonder. "Millions," replied the computer. "Possibly tens of millions. The structure extends much further than our sensors can reach." The alien delegation chose a pod from what looked like a command section. The technology was so advanced that it seemed to read their minds. The moment Dr. Kale touched the pod's control panel, it began the awakening process automatically. Warm light filled the pod as the blue liquid drained away. The human inside, a man who looked to be about 30 years old, began to move slightly. His eyes opened slowly, and he looked around at the gathered aliens with calm, intelligent eyes. "How long?" he asked, in perfect galactic standard, though his voice was rough from sleeping. Dr. Kale stepped forward carefully. 50,000 years, he said gently. The human, his name tag read Captain Lee Deho, closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them again, there was deep sadness there, but also determination. "The children," he said quietly. "How did they grow?" Over the next few hours, more humans awakened from their long sleep. They gathered in a large meeting room, where the alien delegates told them about the galaxy they had missed. The Saurians had built great cities of learning. The Hydronians had become master artists and poets. The Avians had explored the furthest reaches of space. The crystal-like architects had created mathematical wonders. "You did it without us," said Commander Park Min-soo, a human woman with short black hair and kind eyes. Her voice was thick with emotion. "You became everything we hoped you would be." Captain Lee smiled as he looked at the diverse group of aliens. "We went to sleep thinking our children would need us to protect them. Instead, you grew up to protect yourselves." Dr. Kale showed them images of the Great Council chambers, the peaceful trade between dozens of species, and the beautiful worlds where different aliens lived together in harmony. "We never forgot that someone had guided us," Dr. Kale explained. "We just didn't know who until we found your ruins. Our children built a civilization based on cooperation instead of conquest." Observed another awakened human, a young woman named Lieutenant Kim So-young. "You succeeded where we failed." But their happy reunion was interrupted by loud alarms that echoed through the ancient structure. Red lights flashed everywhere as the humans ran to control panels that had been sleeping for millennia. Captain Lee's face became hard and serious as he read the displays. "Long-range sensors are detecting them," he said grimly. "The Devourers are coming back." On the main viewing screen, the aliens saw something that made them step backward in fear. In the empty darkness between galaxies, huge shapes were moving toward their home. The ships were so big that they blocked out entire sections of stars, and they moved with the patient purpose of hungry predators. "They're exactly like the records described," whispered Dr. Vissus. "They're coming to finish what they started." "How much time do we have?" asked Commander Park. "Based on their current speed, they'll reach the Outer Rim worlds in 6 months, Captain Lee replied. "Once they start, they won't stop until they've consumed everything." The humans looked at each other with expressions the aliens couldn't read. There was fear there, but also something else, a kind of tired determination that came from people who had fought this enemy before. We need to wake everyone, Captain Lee decided. All the fleets, all the sleepers. This time we don't fight alone. He turned to look at the assembled alien representatives, with eyes that held 50,000 years of hope and worry. Our children are about to face their first real test, he said quietly. Let's make sure they're ready. The first star system disappeared on a Tuesday morning. One moment, the mining colony of Kepler Station was sending normal reports about ore production. The next moment, there was nothing. Not destroyed, not exploded, simply gone, as if it had never existed at all. Dr. Kale watched the reports come in from the Bridge of Harmony of Worlds. 3 more systems vanished over the next week. The Devourer fleet was moving through the galaxy's outer edge like a slow tide of nothingness, erasing everything in its path. All Council ships. This is Captain Lee Daho, of the Human Defense Corps. Came a calm voice over the communication system. We are taking command of defensive operations. All vessels will receive tactical instructions in 30 seconds. The alien delegates had never heard of the Human Defense Corps, but they were about to learn. Across the galaxy, things that had been hidden for 50,000 years began to wake up. Massive ships uncloaked near strategic planets. They were sleek and beautiful, made of the same impossible metals as the ancient ruins. But these ships hummed with deadly purpose. Orbital weapons platforms appeared around major worlds like they had always been there. Even the empty space between stars began to shimmer as hidden defense networks came online. How many ships do they have? Whispered Captain Vorthok, his green scales pale with amazement. More than all of our fleets combined, replied the sensor officer. They've been hiding an entire military in pocket dimensions. Captain Lee's ship, called Eternal Vigil, was unlike anything the Council species had ever seen. It was shaped like a blade, made of crystal and light, and it moved through space without any visible engines. When it appeared next to the Council flagship, Dr. Kale felt his breath catch in his throat. Dr. Kale, please report to Human Command, came Lee's voice. We need to show you something. The inside of the human ship was just as amazing as the outside. The walls seemed to be made of flowing light, and the floors felt solid but looked transparent. Captain Lee met them in a room that showed a 3-dimensional map of the entire galaxy. The Devourers fight by unmaking the basic structure of reality, Lee explained, pointing to the moving dark shapes on the map. Normal weapons can't hurt them because they don't exist in our dimension the same way we do. Commander Park Min-soo joined them, her uniform now showing the insignia of the Defense Corps. We spent 3 centuries learning how to fight them. The key is not to attack them directly, but to attack the space around them. I don't understand, said Dr. Thesis, her blue skin shimmering with confusion. Watch, Lee said simply. On the map, they could see a Devourer ship approaching a human fleet near the Vega system. But instead of flying toward the enemy, the human ship spread out in a complex pattern around empty space. Reality anchor deployment beginning, announced Commander Park. All Council vessels, maintain minimum safe distance. What happened next was like watching magic. The human ships fired weapons that didn't look like weapons at all. Instead of beams or missiles, they shot something that made space itself twist and bend. The empty area between the ships became a trap made of twisted dimensions. When the Devourer ship entered the trap, it suddenly became visible, a horrible thing that looked like it was made of living darkness and broken mathematics. For a moment, it thrashed wildly as it was forced into normal reality. Then the human weapons fired again, and the creature simply stopped existing. You turned space-time into a weapon, Dr. Kale said in amazement. The Devourers can unmake normal matter, Captain Lee explained, but they can't unmake the basic laws of physics. We use those laws against them. The battle for the galaxy lasted 3 weeks. The human fleets moved with perfect coordination, setting traps in 11 dimensions and using the enemy's own reality warping abilities against them. The younger species provided support, evacuating civilians and protecting supply lines. Dr. Kale watched from the bridge as the final battle took place in the space between galaxies, where normal physics barely worked at all. Human weapons turned the void itself into a battlefield, creating walls of twisted space-time that trapped the remaining Devourer ships. When the last enemy vessel fled back into dark space, the galaxy fell completely silent for several minutes. "Children of the galaxy," came Captain Lee's voice, broadcasting to every world simultaneously. "You have grown strong and wise. 50,000 years ago, we didn't abandon you. We were waiting for the day when you would be ready to stand beside us as equals, not as our children." Commander Park's voice joined his. "The watch continues, but now we share it together. This galaxy belongs to all of us." Over the following months, human cities began appearing on worlds throughout the galaxy, but these weren't the same humans who had gone to sleep 50,000 years ago. They had learned from watching their children grow. They shared their technology freely and asked for nothing in return except friendship. Dr. Kale stood in the new council chamber, looking out at representatives from 47 alien species and 12 human colonies. The galaxy had parents again, but these parents were also friends. The age of the forgotten ancient race was over. The age of the galactic family had begun, and somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, automated sensors kept watch for any sign that the Devourers might return. But this time, they would not face them alone.